Now, today marks 50 years since Bangladesh declared independence, and in that time, it's transformed from an impoverished nation into one of the fastest growing economies in the region. Before the pandemic, economic growth exceeded 7% 4 years in a row, outpacing both India and China. A big part of that expansion is driven by the garment industry, which accounts for more than 80% of the country's exports. But Professor Munir, who is the chairman of the Institute for Policy, Advocacy and Governance think tank, told me that the country is too reliant on one sector.
Export more than 80% coming from one sector is not healthy for any economy or industry for that matter. And we had some industrial tragedies a few years back. Rana Plaza collapsed, more than 1,000 people died. There was a lot of global hue and cry on safety standards we're following. We did bounce back. We did adopt to internationally accepted standards. But moving on, we need to diversify. It's not healthy to be over deep in one particular sector. So we need to invest more on ceramic, then frozen food, agro processing. So that would be one of the challenge of industrialization moving ahead.
Also, the country faces a rather tricky balancing act, if you like, when it comes to its relationship with China and India.
It does. I mean, India, and as you know, in the War of Liberation, India played a positive role. More than 10 million people fled to India, were given shelter. India gave political military support during our War of Liberation. But in the last 50-year relationship, India has gone through ups and downs. But in the last 10, 12 years, it has stabilized. So we have close ties economically, trade, connectivity. On the other hand, China, as you probably know, is one of the very influencing factor, not only in Bangladesh, but in the entire South Asian region. So we have strong economic trade ties, and we're trying to, the country or the government is trying to play a balancing act between the two Asian giants, strengthening our economic trade defense ties with China. On the other hand, India is our biggest neighbor. We share a large border. So we have no option to maintain a functional good relationship with which we're doing. So yeah, it's a sort of balancing act, which I think so far so good.
What are the other challenges that the country faces?
Yeah, I mean, Rohingya, as you know, this has been an ongoing problem spanning over decades. And we now have more than 1 million people. And for a developing resource constrained country like Bangladesh, it puts enormous strain on your resources. I mean, every year we have to spend somewhere between $1 to $2 billion. And if you look at Europe, many developed economies are not very open to letting people in. For a country like us, the challenges are manifold. And recent change in Myanmar, the military junta, I mean, we are more skeptical what's going to happen. So that is something obviously is a continuous challenge.